So this is my sacred text for today, Light One Candle, a song written by Peter Yarrow. So let me tell you a little bit about this. Peter Yarrow, Peter Yarrow, musician and songwriter. He's still living, still with us. He was born May 31st, 1938. Is he 80? All right. He's the son of Vera and Bernard Yarrow, formerly Yaroshevitz. As you may know, many people anglicize their names sometimes when they came. They were Ukrainian Jewish immigrants that came here. He's their son. He began folk singing while in a class at Cornell. He took a class in folk singing, and they would learn about it, and they would also sing. And he just got enthralled by the Weavers. You know the Weavers, all right? He was, and Pete Seeger and those folks, and really liked all that kind of music and began singing that kind of music and began writing songs. Folks introduced him to a couple of other folks they thought could sing well with him and harmonize with him, including Mary and also Paul. Now, Paul was the second name, not the first name, and I'm not recalling his first name of the other character. But they thought, wouldn't that be an interesting Peter, Paul, and Mary that goes together, right? So they decided to play off of that and became the Peter, Paul, and Mary group. You may also know that Peter Yarrow is very much a social and political activist, has been for years and still is. So you may ask, you've heard this song before, is this actually a Hanukkah song? Is it a Hanukkah song? Yes, it is a Hanukkah song, but it's yes and. It's yes and. It's more than just lifting up a holiday. It's a song for all of us because it's also an anti-war song. It's also a civil rights song. And I really think, for sure, it is a song for us today, no matter what our faith tradition. This is a song for us today. So we're going to look at the words to this song and see what kind of meaning they may have for us, and also look at the context and look at some of the history. The first verse says, "Light one candle for the Maccabee children, with thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when their right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand, but light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand." The Hanukkah holiday is a minor holiday in the Jewish tradition. It's not like Yom Kippur, but the reason we tend to hear a lot about it in our world is because it comes in December. And December is when we're lifting up and celebrating other holidays, including, of course, Christmas, Santa Claus, all those kinds of things. So we probably hear more about it in the Christian world, those of us that grew up as Christians, than we have heard of other Jewish holidays, which are actually more important in the Jewish calendar. But it does come during December, or sometimes one year, maybe last year, or maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it came at the same time as Thanksgiving, kind of. It moves around a little bit. But this time, it happened to be that both the first and the last days of Hanukkah fell on Sundays. And so I thought to myself, well, that's a word to me. I must be supposed to preach about Hanukkah, this year, since they're falling on Sundays. It has a very complex history, simplified, of course, by the little film we saw for the children, which I thought was just great, a great simplification. But it is very complex. So I'm still going to try to simplify it somewhat. And so you all studied Western civilization and Alexander the Great's conquest of what was then known as the then, quote, civilized world, is what we were taught. So Judea was also conquered, and all of this world that Alexander the Great, when he came in, as you know, conquerors, they not only come in with their conquering, they come in with their customs and everything else. So it began to be more and more Hellenized, and people began to follow different traditions, eat different foods, have different holidays. And this happened too in Judea. And so the Jews themselves began, oh, let's try this dish, you know. We do the same kind of thing. So this happened in the cities, especially more so than the countries. It became more and more Hellenized, except there were some that held back. Now, there was religious freedom back during Alexander the Great's time. Alexander the Great was someone that was given instruction actually by Aristotle, and thought of the idea, he understood the idea of one God, and so he was quite ready when he conquered the Jewish kingdom. He came in, and the story goes that he bowed down to the high priest, Simon the Just. Alexander's death in 323 BCE led to the division into 3 dynasties. So Judea was right kind of squeezed between the southern one, which was centered in Alexandria, Egypt, and the northern one in Damascus, Syria. You see how long these things have been going on, folks, with folks fighting over who gets to be in control. So it sort of went back and forth, who do they belong to kind of thing. But eventually, they were invaded by the north in 198 BC. Now, Antiochus III, he was this guy, the bad guy, okay? He was the bad guy. He defeated the Egyptians and said, this is going to be ours. And when he came in, he said, no, we're not going to have all these different religious practices. He went into the temple and threw out a lot of the artifacts, the Jewish artifacts and the Jewish, and said we're going to, everything, we're going to be more the same, which many leaders do. They want everybody to believe alike so they can control everybody. So he outlawed the Jewish practices. Now, to be honest, many of the Jews themselves, especially in the cities, had quit doing some of these things. They had moved more toward other kinds of things. So the Jews themselves were divided on some of this. Some of the Jews were still practicing, others were not. But he said, no, you can't practice them. As you saw in the little children's video, though, there were some that said, no, we are going to do this. And the leader of this was Judah Maccabee. Judah Maccabee was the strong guy that said, we are not going to let this happen. We are going to fight. We're going to stand up and fight this so that we can practice our religion the way we want to. We're going to cleanse the temple. So he got forces around him. His brothers were also sort of generals in the army. They call these folks the Maccabees, but the whole army wasn't that Maccabees. They were all kinds of folks. But because Judah Maccabee was the leader, sometimes people call the whole group of them the Maccabees. And this is why the song says the Maccabee children, because Judah and his brothers were leaders of this rebel force. It was a rebel force. Basically, this was a civil war, like we have now going on in the Middle East a lot of times. This was a Syrian-backed, were fighting against forces. There were some Jewish people fighting with them too, fighting against the Maccabee brothers and their rebel forces. So they had this war, and the Judah Maccabee was able to defeat the forces and run these folks out of the temple. Well, the temple by then was really messed up, and so they came in and they cleansed the temple. They came in and they cleaned it out. They got rid of all of the gods and goddesses that were put in there that were not a part of the Jewish religion, and really cleaned it up nicely to try to rededicate it. And that's what Hanukkah is all about, like a rededication, a dedication of this cleaned out and renewed temple. So they got it all cleaned out, and then, you know, to highlight that and honor that, they decided to light their lamp. Now, folks, like most scripture, these words were written long after this occurred, 600 years maybe after it occurred. So we don't know what really happens, but these things are handed down. These stories are handed down. So we can assume that there's some truth in it, that some of these things happen. These stories are sung, and the lamp was there. And there was only enough oil, as was shared with the children's story, for one day. That's the story. But they went ahead and lit the lamp and sent off for the other. Now, there's more oil around, but this had to be the special holy oil, especially prayed over, those kinds of things. There was only enough for one day. So they lit the lamp, sent someone off to get the special oil. It took them 8 days to get it. But the lamp, the story goes, burned for all 8 days. Now we may ask, those of us who are skeptics in here about miracles, how did this happen? Well, some folks will say, well, maybe it was a very, very different kind of oil that burned longer. Others may say, well, maybe some of the people wanting the Jewish people not to give up hope brought in and refilled the lamp every night with some oil. And others will say, maybe it really was a miracle. We don't know. But the lamp burned for 8 days, the story goes. Then that gave them hope. It gave them hope. And it still gives the people hope because the light is a symbol of their faith. And the idea that the light won't go out, that we can keep it burning, we can keep it going, is a message for all of us. It's a message we lift up. It's a message we sing about. Sing that chorus with me. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Second verse. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. The Jewish people were actually, some of them, fighting against their own folks, right? Became their own foe. How did that happen? Sometimes the people we care about and love and think we're part of, we fight against our own, them. Maybe even sometimes in our congregations we do that. In our families we do it. Certainly in our nation. And sometimes even within ourselves. We fight ourselves. Sometimes we learn that some of the things that we detest more, that we are frustrated with, we realize that we have some of the blame for that. We have a part in it. We're part of it. You remember this old Pogo cartoon? It is hard walking on this stuff. Yep, son, we have met the enemy, and he is us. Very often, we're fighting ourselves. We do things to ourselves, get in our own mess. So we light a candle, hoping we don't have to fight ourselves, fight each other. In so many ways, we see that we ourselves, our families, our communities, our nations have been involved in activities that come back to haunt us. Come back to haunt us. We have done this through our actions and our inactions, through our words and through not speaking. But it's not too late to cleanse the temple. We can come in and cleanse the temple, the metaphorical temple. It will take courage to do so, but we can do it. Another line, light one candle for those who are suffering the pain we learned so long ago. Now the Jewish folks, and we have some in here with us that were raised that way and others that have converted, the Jewish folks have suffered so much pain through the ages that they have learned, and when they see the same thing happening, they say they understand that. They have a deep meaning. Yes, we know what this is like. This happened to our people. And they stand up for civil rights. They stand up for these things because they say, this is not right. And we all have had some of that. And we all see it today. Here's this mom rushing away from the tear gas. How do things like this happen? That we understand the pain from long ago, from our own history, and we say, how does this happen? How does it light one candle for that pain, for that suffering? Let's do something about it. Light one candle for all we believe in, that anger won't tear us apart. And light one candle to bring us together with peace as a song in our heart. I don't know about you folks, but I am getting tired of being angry. I know there's righteous anger, that we should be upset. There are things that we need to be upset about, and that motivates us to do something about it. But sometimes that anger can just tear us apart. I don't want to be there. Peter Yarrow has in his song, how do we not get there? He said, for all we believe in, that anger won't tear us apart. We lift up what we believe in. Now, we have different creeds and beliefs in this room, but we have principles and values that we all believe in. Here are some of these as accepted by the Unitarian Universalist Association, that we have inherent worth and dignity of every person, that we promote justice, equity, and compassion, that we accept one another, encourage spiritual growth along our own spiritual paths. 4 is that we search freely and responsibly for truth and meaning, a free and responsible search. That's one reason some of us came here. We wanted to be free to search ourselves. We may come up with different answers, but we want to search for truth and meaning. We want to support democracy, as number 5 says. And many of us did go out and we did cast our votes. We support democracy. And if we keep doing it, we don't get discouraged. It's easy to get discouraged for us sometimes when it didn't go our way, maybe. Keep doing it. It will matter. Number 6 is improve the global community. I'm wearing my little world things here. Tomorrow is the anniversary, 70th anniversary for the human rights, for the United Nations human rights that Eleanor Roosevelt was so supportive of. 70th anniversary. And so we want the global community. We want to rise together, and we respect that. And also respect for the whole interdependent web of which we are a part. So we lift all these up and other values, and then we sing, don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. 3rd verse. What is the memory that's valued so highly we keep it alive in that flame? There's something about a flame burning in our menorah, the Advent candle, the chalice, a flame burning that we want to keep the warmth, want to keep the beauty of it alive. This is something we say at the end of each service. Share this with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We know we may put out that little symbolic flame, but we want to keep the light burning. I'm a member of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, which is our Unitarian Universalist congregation that reaches out to people who don't have a congregation they can come to, especially those in prisons and others. And they end every one of their services with the words, carry the flame, carry the flame. Take it with you. Take that light with you. Keep it burning. Keep love alive. Peter's song says that we can also keep our memories alive as well. What are the memories? Who are the people? What are the places? What are the values represented by the flame in your life that you want to keep alive? I want to ask you to do something that's a little bit woo-woo, but you can go along with me. Think of some memories that you want to keep alive in that flame and whisper them into the cup of your hand, a couple of them. People or ideas, you can whisper them in there. Go ahead, you can do it. Come on. Now put that down over your heart. Keep that in your heart. Keep that in your heart. What's the commitment to those who have died when we cry out they've not died in vain? For the Jewish people, there's so many martyrs and people along the way that have died for their faith. We have some as well. Our Unitarian here is Michael Servetus. We don't have the kind of numbers they do, but there are people along the way that have died for their faith. Died so that we can have the kind of faith we want to have. Died for values along the way. Died for things they care about. Some of you know people in your own lives that have died for things they cared about. And others that have suffered greatly for things, values, and things they hold dear. Some in this room have suffered for things they hold dear. Have we come this far always believing that justice would somehow prevail? Did we come this far? This is the burden, and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. We've come this far. I can say that to us to get a little bit discouraged in where we are today in our nation and in our world, but we have come this far. We have made improvements. Some things in the world have greatly improved. Are we just going to drop back now? No. This is why we will not fail. We cannot fail. We will not fail. We have to keep the light burning as we sing. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. One more time. Don't let the light go out. It's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out. Let it shine through our love and our tears. Amen.